Welcome to DAExMachiNation. Join us as we explore the mysteries of this world. Cryptids, monsters, macabre tales, and horror stories abound. Could they be true? Are monsters real?
Good evening, folks, and thank you all for joining us on another edition of DAExMachiNation. Tonight, we're going to be bringing you stories from areas y'all request. We'll be taking requests in the chat, what state or what area, if we can find accounts from those areas, and we will be discussing those encounter stories as well as other cool things that are going on. But a couple of quick updates before we get started. I'm about 45,000 words into Lakeview Man, Dead of Winter. We kind of slowed down there for a little bit because I wasn't feeling good the last couple of days. I had really nasty migraine kicking my butt. Robbie's book has now cleared edits, and we're getting ready to start the layouts. That shouldn't take us too terribly long. His cover's looking really good. He hired the guy that I use, Adam. Adam Shepard does great work, and if any of y'all out there are looking to get a cover, I would highly recommend reaching out to Adam. He's
Yeah.
I can just upload that and I will show it to everybody. If y'all are well, if I can maybe on my phone. God dang it.
Just make sure the one where he's looking the right way, because remember you got two of them.
No. I was going to think the advertisement for Adam.
Oh, okay.
If you wanted to show your cover or not. I apparently don't have it on the computer. It's on my phone. I'll get that at some point during the night. And get that put up for anybody interested in the cover.
But if you got it, I don't think it'll hurt to tease the cover if everybody wants to see it. If you got it,
we'll have to. I think it. Did you send that by text or Facebook? Because text, I'm not going to be able to upload it.
I can send it to your messenger if you want me to.
Okay, send it to the messenger, and I will.
You want me to just send it to the co-host chat?
No, go ahead and send it to yours because I can pull that same image that
No, I mean you want me to send it to your personal or to the co-host chat?
Yeah, just send it to me. No, actually, you can just throw that in the co-host chat. That's fine.
Okay.
I was looking for that image I sent you. There it is. You can download that. Okay. And I'll download this. All right, I will upload the book one first so you can talk about that. That is cutting when we upload it on this, that way it's cutting everything off. Let me pull it up the old-fashioned way, and I'll just do a share screen. Hold on. Nothing is wanting to cooperate tonight.
One of them nights.
My computer's acting funny. I may have to have Noah come in and work on my computer. Not tonight. I know he's busy tonight, but something's acting weird. Everything's just like super slow. All right, I'll let you talk a little about this, and then I'll bring up the one for Adam.
So originally I had a different cover in mind, but somebody told me, said you need to sell the tension and sell what's going on, and they pointed out this scene. So basically, this is towards the beginning of the book when he goes to the first call, and DA and I both have talked about it. I think it sets the tone for the rest of the book.
I think it does too. That's going to look really good in print.
So we'll see. I did send one more edit idea to him, because somebody did suggest that maybe he could outline the Shadow Walkers in Silver Star and my name in white,
make it pop a little more.
To make it pop a little bit more. So, but yeah, Adam, he does a good job. I think he nailed it, because the only changes from the first one to the second one were putting Jed in between my name, which he didn't realize that anyway. And the deputy had a AR-15 in his hand, and his head was turned the other way. So really, he nailed it just about completely on the first, and the first one looked good too.
Oh yeah.
We both loved the first one, but I was talking to DA, and I was like, that's those little bit of changes will make all the difference, because he's getting ready to make entry, so he wouldn't be looking the other way; he'd be looking towards the door.
Right.
So, I think you nailed it.
I do too. I think I can't wait to see the full extended cover that goes across the whole back.
Yep. Trisha, we're working on it. That's what we were just talking about. Hopefully, what we say, maybe in the next 2 to 3 weeks, if
Maybe.
everything works out good.
And let me real quick, I'll share this. If any of y'all know any authors out there, or if you're looking to do a book yourself, reach out to Adam. There's the contact information. Your new book cover at gmail.com, and $50 a cover is really reasonable. He does a damn good job. But anyway, that wasn't the main news I wanted to share with y'all tonight. I know some of y'all have asked about this. I know some of you guys are hunters, and some of y'all are outdoorsmen, and some of you guys just like to go out and plink a little bit with your favorite pew pew, or as we like to call it cordless freedom seed distribution device. But I wanted to announce something, and I think I will change hats to do that. And those of you who are unfamiliar, Sigwo Arms is a company here in Springfield, and they are going to be doing limited run productions on AR platforms with the Wild Hunt logo engraved in it, along with some of the other things from the books. But look for lowers available with that on it, and they can engrave anything else you like as well. And also be looking for Sigwo to be making appearances in the books. If you'd like to check out some of the stuff that Sigwo has already, you can check them out. It's that's their logo, a little castle with the word Sigwo, and it's sigwoarms.com. I'm not sure if that's coming through very well.
Yeah, it's kind of washing out a little bit, but
yeah, I'll have to post that. But just sigwoarms.com, and they make some really awesome stuff. They also produce suppressors for any of you who would like to protect your hearing. But they make them for pretty much any platform, and hope you guys will check them out, because very soon, and I do mean very soon, you'll be seeing available uppers and lowers with custom logos from Codename Wild Hunt and other books. So be looking for that, and also be looking for Sigwo to be showing up in the books. Probably starting with the one I'm writing right now. This is one of theirs too. It's one of their patches. It says silencers, full auto, SBR, NFA Superstore. Yeah, so definitely check them out. They make some amazing stuff. Cody, the guy that's the front manager, has been a buddy of mine for years, and most of the handguns I own today I've gotten through Cody, because they just are absolutely fantastic. Heck, half the stuff that's in my cabinet, even long guns, are came through there. That's my go-to place when I'm picking up both Freedom Seeds and Freedom Seed distribution devices. So check out sigwoarms.com. Let them know we sent you, and very soon you should be able to order your Codename Wild Hunt, or even other series like View Man or anything like that. Apex Predator. We'll be working on designs with them, and here pretty soon I'm going to have one of my own to show you guys. I think you guys are going to like it. So, Miss Lenny, absolutely, sigwoarms.com. Thank you for putting that up there. They do all level of custom work on your Freedom Seed distribution devices. So definitely check them out. And if you're not local, you can still have it shipped to anybody. Well, a lot of the stuff doesn't require an FFL, but if it does require one, you can have it shipped to any gun store in your area. So just check them out. Let them know we sent you, and look for Sigwell Arms making a big appearance in the DA verse. Now I'm going to go back to my cowboy hat because I like it. Robbie's been in there. Yeah, it's a pretty nice old place.
Yeah, it's a nice little store. I mean, they got some they got some nice stuff that I would have loved to have more time to play around with.
Yeah, I would as much area as they got to expand into. I hope they open an indoor firing range.
Yeah, they
I'd,
look like
I'd
they
be there
had
a
the.
lot more if they did.
They look like they got the space for it.
They sure do. They just have to reinforce a wall. But anyway, we tonight we're going to be doing encounter stories from areas you guys could suggest. So if you guys would like to see if you're whatever state you're from, um, just let us know in the comments, and we will hunt stories up from that area and let you know. So Eastern Washington, this moon says, okay, we're already on the board with Eastern Washington. I will jump right on that. Eastern Washington. My brother lives in Eastern Washington. He lives
Right.
in Walla Walla. My older brother Ron.
Well, Judy's next on there with Mobile, Alabama, so I'll get
Okay.
that after you.
Okay, you pull one up for Mobile, and I will get one
Or
for
I'll look.
Eastern Washington, and there are a bunch. Uh, uh, Mrs. Moon, what particular area in Eastern Washington do you live? Are you near Spokane? I was waiting to see. Oh, we got a bunch of them thrown out there. Let's try to keep a note on those. They're moving by pretty
Yeah,
quick.
mods, if y'all will kind of keep that, because it's going to be hard for me and DA to look for this and watch that. So if mods could help us out and keep up, we got Washington and Mobile, Alabama that we're looking for now. So if y'all keep up with the rest of them, that would help out a whole lot.
Well, here's a Class A from just outside of Walla Walla, where my brother lives, and he had an encounter that I thought was pretty damn cool. But I'm going to read this one. It's Walla Walla County. Uh, Spring of 2001 is when this happened. It says take Mill Creek Road to Blue Creek Road, go left and follow 5 Point, then go right on Black Snake Ridge. Sounds like a great place to go out. Witness was riding with some friends up Black Snake Ridge in their SUV. They came to stop to spot elk. The witness said she was looking in an area called Laird Gulch when she noticed what she said to be a black-colored, upright walking primate. Witness says the creature was approximately 7 to 8 feet tall, and she could see its arms swinging back and forth as it walked down the ridge. She asked her friends to take a look with their spotting scope to confirm what she was seeing, but they would not take the time since they were watching a herd of elk on the close ridge. The Sasquatch walked down and into the woods, at which point she lost sight of it. That's a pretty good one. It's short, but that's an interesting one.
What is
Since
Mobile?
that one's so short, I'll do another one. This one's actually these are both. This is two in the exact same area. That well, this actually report goes along with it. Same area up on Black Snake Ridge. While driving Black Snake Ridge doing field work, I came across large bipedal footprints going across Black Snake Ridge. I got up to investigate the tracks. From heel to heel, the prints were 4.5 feet apart. That's a pretty good stride. Tracks were approximately 16 inches long. One track still had toe impressions in it. I counted about 20 good tracks, and there were others that were fading out. I shot video of the tracks and went home. The next day, I went back up to look for more in the location and found more across the road, but they weren't weathered. They were badly weathered. And this one's in that same area, Black Snake Ridge. A group of friends and I took 3 different trucks up Black Snake Ridge at 12 p.m. to look for evidence of Sasquatch activity. Once we made it to the top of Black Snake, we had to 4x4 in the snow a bit before heading back down. Once we were heading down, I was in the back following the other two trucks. I was far enough behind to lose sight of them and was looking for tracks along the road when I came upon a series of tracks that warranted investigation. I came to a stop and got out and to video the tracks, which came out of the woods, crossed the road, and went over a slash pile. For those of you who don't know what a slash pile is, loggers leave slash piles. When you drop timber, you cut the little branches off and throw them in a pile, and that's called a slash pile. But anyway, went over a slash pile and back across into the woods again. My friend had turned back to see if I might have gotten stuck, and were shocked by the tracks I pointed out to them. We followed them back into the woods until they faded out due to the wind and snow. We got back into our trucks and headed home when I got a flat tire and another truck ran out of gas. Sounds like a rough trip. I headed back to town in the number 3 truck while the other friend who ran out of gas waited in his truck with his girlfriend for us to return with a spare and gas. While we were heading down Black Snake back to town, we saw another set of fresh tracks coming out of the woods, walking down the road for a bit, then off into the woods again. We got out to look these over, and it took 2 steps of my friend to match 1 step of the Sasquatch. We made a video of the tracks and went on into town to get our supplies. Upon coming back, the Black Snake tracks were gone due to the weather. We repaired the trucks and went home. Okay, that kind of equals one long one. That's 3 sightings right there on Black Snake Ridge, just outside of Walla Walla.
Yep. Where is what area is Mobile close to? What other?
I do not know.
I know I've been through it. But I can't. I mean, there's sightings all over Alabama. So I mean, Tuscaloosa's got a bunch right around there.
There's a bunch around Birmingham. There's a Dogman by Jasper.
Yeah, I saw that one.
Where the heck is Mobile? I thought Mobile was a pretty big town.
I thought so too, but I've been the whole time that you were reading. Yeah, I was looking all over the place for it, and it's near the Gulf, they said, but Gulf Shore.
There it is. It's down there. It's on the water. By Daphne, Fairhope. Right there at the end of that one little bit of Alabama sticks out right next to the panhandle of Florida.
I'm at Biloxi. Which way do I need to go, left or right?
If you're in Biloxi, that's Mississippi. You need to go to the right.
Okay. I mean, I knew that was, but I just want to make sure I was going in the right direction.
Pascagoula.
Fort Walton Beach, Panama City,
Gulfport.
Foley, Fairhope, Daphne, Babe. Oh, okay, I see it. I got it.
There you go. All right.
Looks like there's only one kind of close. It's in the Mobile, Tennessee Delta Wildlife Management Area. Oh, imagine that.
Wildlife Management Area. Shocker.
Yeah, that shocks the living you know what out of me. All right, let's see. This is actually from Baldwin County, and it happened 14th of September 1979 in the summer, and is a Class A. Traveling south on Highway 138 from Bay Minette, crossover Highway 225 at the crossroads. Now you're on Hurricane Road. Stay right at the fork and you will run right into the landing. The little white house where the sighting occurred was torn down and a new house was built. It stands on the right-hand side of the road just before you go around the curve to the hill that goes up to the landing. It was a few days after Hurricane Frederick, and I was 11 years old at the time. We lived in a trailer on Hurricane Road, and my grandparents owned the Hurricane Landing and Fish Camp, what is now Perkins Landing. We were left without power after the hurricane, so all of our food was on ice, and it was about 11 p.m., and my dad asked me to walk to my grandparents' store to get some ice, so I grabbed a flashlight and took off walking. It was less than a quarter of a mile from our house to the store, and I was very used to walking this route on a daily basis. So as I'm walking down the left side of the road, I can hear dogs barking and really cutting up. They belonged to an older man who lived in the little white house just down the road on the right. He kept them in a pen behind his house. So when I got in front of the house, I shine my light across the street at or around the house. Around the house, excuse me. Suddenly, I see something very large run from behind the house on two legs. I followed it with my light as it ran towards the woods, and then it stopped and turned around and looked at me. Its eyes glowed red in the dark, and all of a sudden, it runs straight at me. It was so fast, it traveled 30 to 40 yards in just a flash, and then it stopped right at the edge of the road. I was frozen scared, and I couldn't scream or run, so we just stood there for what seemed like an eternity, but in all actuality, it was probably just a second or two. Then it suddenly let out a high-pitched growling sound, and then I screamed, and it turned and ran all. It turned, and I turned, and when I ran all the way home. When I got home, I was so upset I could hardly breathe or talk. My parents finally calmed me down, and I told them what happened, but they didn't believe me. The next day, my dad and my uncle went down to look for tracks, and they couldn't find any. My uncle told me that I probably saw a bear, but even I know a bear can't run on two legs. The creature I saw was extremely large. I would have to say it was at least 7 feet tall, very broad shoulders, covered from head to toe in dark brown to black hair. His mouth and large square teeth kind of like stuck out from the rest of his face, and the eyes were sunk in. As a veteran, I can tell you that I've never been so scared in my life.
That's a pretty good one.
Yeah. That would be kind of scary out there walking on the road by yourself at 11 o'clock at night and walk up on that thing.
Well, dude, we weren't alone, and what we found late at night was ready to put the hooga booga on us too.
Yeah, but we wasn't 11 years old. We were grown men and armed.
Yeah,
there's an 11-year-old kid that ain't armed.
That kid's pretty gutsy. I'll give him that. Probably more gutsy than I'd have been at 11.
Oh yeah, that's really the only one around Mobile. They got one in the Gulf Shores around Foley. Then that's the only one that's really close to Mobile.
John Wayne says, back in the late 70s, early 80s, the former Skamania County, Washington sheriff and others reported seeing a Bigfoot come down the mountain and swim across the Columbia River into Oregon. That's pretty wild. And Hillary says, DA, just to show how dedicated I am, my sandwich is cold. I don't want to miss any of the show by going to the kitchen, so I'm reheating it with my electric blanket. That's some dedication right there. That is awesome.
That's how you improvise, adapt, and overcome right there.
Dang right. Well, somebody said near Spokane, Washington. I was trying to watch to see what the next one was. So, Robbie, while you're finding what your next one is, have one of the mods let us know what order to go in or just which ones to pick. This one is near Spokane, since I was already there on the map anyway in eastern Washington. This is from 2005. Boy Scout observes large brown animal on two legs run by him. It's a Boy Scout camp on a lake in eastern Washington. That's all I can remember about it. I just found this website, and I'm going to tell you about an incident that happened several years ago. I was about 14 and in the Boy Scouts. My troop was from Portland, Oregon, and we were attending a Boy Scout summer camp near Spokane somewhere. I can't remember the exact name of the camp, but it was near Spokane. The different troops lived in different campsites ringed around the lake and a main lodge. My troop had one of the furthest campsites from the lodge and the lake. During the daytime, our campsite was normally empty. For the first few days, everything was fine, and things started coming up missing, and evidence that someone had been going through our belongings was evident. Needless to say, one morning I woke up and felt sick. I was given permission to stay in my tent and rest while everyone else left and partook in the morning festivities. Well, I was resting in my tent and thinking about what would happen if the thing or person going through our camp showed up while I was there alone. Then, in the distance, I heard the voices of boys from my troop making the way back to camp. One boy was in the lead of the group, and just about back into our camp, I heard him yell, "Hey, what are you doing?" I knew I was the only person in camp, and I was not visible as I was in my tent. I darted out of my tent and looked down the trail to my right and saw my troop mate. Then something flashed by to my left. It was upright on 2 feet, and all I can say is it was really large and brown. At the edge of our camp, it darted into the brush and proceeded up a small incline. Whatever it was moved with incredible speed and ease through this thick underbrush. It stopped at the crest of the hill and looked back down at us. Then we, being young and dumb, started into the brush, and it turned and disappeared. I'm not sure what I saw. I do know it was on two legs and it moved quicker than any human I'd ever seen, through some very thick brush. Interesting.
Mm-hmm. I'm trying to find something from Cache River, Michigan. I rolled back, and that was the one right after Spokane. So,
Hey, Noah. Noah's in the house tonight. What's up, buddy? While you're looking at that one, Roxanne's got one here from Obion County, Tennessee. I will. I'm not sure I can find the county per se, but I will try. Yeah, it does, the map unfortunately does not have. What's that near? What town is Obion County, Tennessee near? Because this doesn't list counties. It might on the actual accounts, but the uh, the uh, the actual map itself just shows cities and like Cherokee National Forest and things like that. Roxanne said Minnesota. Okay, well, until I figure out where Obion is, I'll try um, Minnesota. I'll go to
Minnesota.
Minnesota. Minnesota, to quote Jesse the Body Ventura. Okay, do you want a Bigfoot or a Dogman encounter from Minnesota? We haven't had any Dogman ones yet. I'll do a Dogman
Nope.
one. I got one queued up whenever you're ready.
I'm in the general area, so if you want to
Okay.
go ahead, I'm still trying to see if there's anything.
Okay. Well, then I will do this one. This is according to the recount. It's in Aitkin County, uh, east of Brainerd. This was from not all that long ago, January 2015, so about 10 years ago. She says, I'm a city girl, so I don't know a thing about tracks. Last winter, I was at the cabin and saw prints in the snow next to a small creek near the frozen pond. The prints were a big circle with three smaller circles above the big circle. I wear a size 7 shoe, but I wear a size 8 boot to provide room for extra socks. The print was bigger than my boot, which measures 11 inches long. I went home and looked on the internet to see what kind of print it was. After doing that, I decided it must have been a wolf. After I heard about Dogman a month or so ago, I checked on the Bemidji Wolf Center's website and discovered the wolf prints only get to be about 5.5 inches long. Since I don't know anything about tracks, I couldn't tell if it was four or two-legged creature that had left the track. Of course, at the time, the two-legged possibility was the furthest thing from my mind. I told my friend about the tracks and I thought they might have been a dog man. Although he was my friend, he said he didn't believe in dog man. He did say that a guy who we went to high school with back in the 80s, with whom my friend played music at the time, had said he had seen the devil in the woods when he was up north hunting. He said it had red eyes, stood on two legs, and had a dog head that was huge, and it stared at him, then jumped across the gully he was in like it was nothing. One thing I forgot to mention is that I had a tough little Lhasa Apso with me. I guess that's a type of dog. I don't know what a Lhasa Apso is.
Yeah, it's a dog.
With me when I saw those tracks. He's usually fearless, but he would not leave my side all that weekend. I couldn't even get him to go outside the cabin alone to go to the bathroom. Also, my 300-pound brother is afraid of the cabin and won't go up there alone. He doesn't believe in Dogman or Bigfoot, but something about the place creeps him out. I've gone up there alone, but rarely go outside after dark. Once in a while, I find myself finishing up the sauna after dark and rush back into the cabin, which is about 100 yards away. I use an indoor bucket instead of the outhouse in winter when the water's turned off. I'm going to make sure that I put curtains up on all the windows now that I've heard about these things. Whew. Well, if it's bigger than 5.5 inches, it probably wasn't a wolf. Well,
Probably
not a
not.
conventional wolf.
All right, I found something. It's not in Cache River, and I don't know how far Kingston is from Cache River, but that's the closest thing that I could find to. There's a lot of stuff in Michigan itself, but Kingston Township was the closest thing that I could find to Cache. And this was from 1999, February 15th, 1999. It was in winter. It's a Class A. It's a short one, but it says, okay, I've decided to tell you my story after much thought. I do not want any media involved, please. My wife and I purchased our home near Kingston, Michigan in February of 99. We were having coffee in the morning on a weekend date. I cannot recall, but it was shortly after or still in February. As we were having our coffee, I was looking off into the woods behind our home and saw a tall, pitch black ape, in quotation marks, walking from south to north. It was erect, however, slightly leaning forward, not walking straight up. Its arms were long, just kind of swinging loosely as it passed. It traveled about 20 feet in my view, and I only saw it from the right side. My wife did not see it, and it's really hard for her to take me serious. I don't blame her, though. There was some snow on the ground, but very scant. No footprints. The ground was frozen. I was going to investigate, packing my 9mm, but took something with a little bit more power because this thing was huge. That's the end of it. So I'll see if I can find it.
I'm still looking for Obion County in Tennessee. I can't find. They said Union City. I'm not finding that either. Not on this map anyway.
There's one above Cass City in Huron County in Caseville. So, like I said, I don't know how far these two are. Cass looks like it's right in the middle of these. But anyway, while DA's looking up that one, this one happened in 1965, July 15th, 1965. In the summer, it's another Class A, and this is a long one. So bear with me because we know how these things are written a lot of times. In the sand dunes above the shore of Lake Huron, I believe we were east of town. There's swampland immediately inland in the area of Cassville, and the mouth of the Pigeon River is in Cassville also. When I was a child, we used to go to Cassville every summer and rent a cabin on the Lake Huron shore. I believe I was 12 and my sister was 5, which would make this 1965 when it occurred. One night there was a weenie roast on the beach, and all the families were invited to meet out on the beach that night. Usually the beach was deserted at night, and the moon was full on that night, and I was standing by the campfire with a group of kids when a boy and a girl came running up, and the boy was ranting and shaking and wild-eyed with fright. He said we were attacked by a witch. Remember as you read this that we're all kids. There's a witch in the sand dunes. It had set a trap and tried to grab us. He then proceeded to tell us that they had been walking the dunes and fallen into a hole that had been purposely covered with branches. Just as they were climbing out of the trap, a witch came toward them and they ran. We were all laughing and refusing to believe them, but I remember looking closely at him, and he was really scared and breathing hard. He was adamant that he was telling the truth, so we kids decided to go into the dunes to find the witch, and we went off in pairs from different points. I was climbing the path up the dunes with another girl, and as the path was steep, I was looking down to watch my footing. Suddenly, I heard a rumbling like a small motorcycle above me. My first thought was that a mini bike was coming towards us on the trail, but when I looked up, I saw this thing standing 8 feet or so in front of me, facing us, and I realized the sound that I heard was it growling. The moon was lighting it up from behind and to the side. My companion let out a gasp and immediately ran away, and at first I froze, but then I just smirked and thought, I get it, it's a joke. The kid got us up here. Now he's got a friend trying to scare us. The creature was about 4 feet tall and had massive shoulders like a football player with their shoulder pads on. It was standing upright but appeared hunched forward at the shoulders. It appeared to have no neck and a relatively small and perfectly round head. Due to the moon being behind it, I could not see the lower 2/3 of the head, nor could I see the face at all. I really tried to see the face too, but it was totally dark. From the massive shoulders, it narrowed into a relatively small waist with short, comparatively stocky legs bent at the knees and big feet. The chest was smooth, and it looked at first like leather. He's throwing me off because he's writing first with the 1 and the ST. It looked at first like leather, but I realized that it could be muscle that was just outlined in the light. The arms were longer than would be proportionate for a human, and they hung down to its knees. The hands were long and large, and it was facing me, swinging its arms from side to side, right to left, and stopped growling, but was kind of grunting. I say, I say, as he was very masculine looking. I say he because he was very masculine looking. It was covered with orange hair, and as I studied it, I realized I could see veins, tendons, and hair coming out of the skin. I began to realize that this thing was not a costume. I saw what looked like about 1 inch claws, clearly lit by the moon. I realized this thing was real, and it started walking towards me and had claws, and a jolt of fear kicked me into gear, and I ran. I know you say these animals don't have claws, but I saw claws. That's what made me panic. I'm open to the possibility that they were just long fingernails. And as I was running, I remember being so afraid that it was going to grab me as I was coming and that it was coming slowly towards me, and I was only about 6 feet or so away when I ran. When I got down the dune and onto the beach near a group of people, I immediately turned and looked up the hill, but could no longer see anything in the darkness on the hill. I was so shocked that I said nothing and never saw any of those kids ever again. They must have ran home. I remember thinking how grateful I was that it didn't grab me, and also wondered why it didn't when it seemed to be coming towards me. Within a matter of minutes, my little sister, age 5, came down from the side of the same dune towards me, saying, I saw Frankenstein and the Wolf Man. I ran over excited and said, Did you see it? Now, years later, as an adult, she swears she saw it too. What had happened was she wanted to follow the other kids into the dunes, but instead of taking the path, she climbed through the grass up to the side of the dunes. She says that she was on the top just below the path when a set of little feet ran by. The first girl, a few seconds later, a second set of feet, me, and then this ape came down the path and stopped in front of her. She was viewing it from the side, which was dark as the moon was on the other side. She only remembers the arms swinging and grunting and the hairy hands and feet. She felt that it appeared to be brown, but again, she was seeing it from a vantage point that would illuminate like it did, like I did. That makes no sense, but she tells me she was right next to it, and she could have touched its ankle if she had wanted to. She yelled down to our mother that there was something up there. My mom replied something like something like "That's nice, dear," and kept socializing. She tells me, due to the yelling, she's sure the thing knew she was right there next to her, but it did not hurt her or threaten her or touch her. When I asked her what her impression was, she felt that it seemed bewildered, confused, and it didn't know what to do. I tried to tell my parents, but they wouldn't believe us. I was so afraid to sleep that night, as our cabin was mere yards from the path that I'd encountered this thing on. However, nothing else occurred, and I have a cousin whose family used to own a lakefront vacation house in Cassville when she was very small. They had a swamp directly behind the house, and their housekeeper, who is now deceased, used to tell them there's something in that swamp. When I first started researching on the internet what I'd seen, I didn't think Bigfoot, as it looked different from the descriptions I'd heard and the photos I'd seen. However, now I know there are different varieties of Bigfoot. And in fact, my sighting looks very similar to the drawing on the cover of Legend of Boggy Creek video. And that's all about that one.
That one's interesting. She said claws, which made me think, Gugway. But if that'd been a Gugway and she screamed right next to it, she'd have been a
Yeah,
missing 411.
she'd have been like a little what's her name in Lakeview Man.
Yeah, yeah. So I'm
But
thinking
they also said it was 4 feet tall though.
could
So
have been a juvenile. Yeah,
yeah,
but the fingernails. Well, she didn't describe them as nails. She said claws.
yeah.
So that would lead me to think more more of a Gugway, maybe like a juvenile Gugway. Hmm. Sounds pretty interesting, though. Hillary
Yeah.
says, my sandwich is no longer cold, but now my bed smells like a sweaty sub shop. That's funny. Uh, well, I have one from that county, from Obion County. It's the closest one I could find to the main city there, but it's a few years old. It's from 1978. It was a Class A encounter. Man relates a series of encounters with a white Bigfoot near Obion. Off Interstate 155 at the Obion exit, turn west away from town, go about 2 miles, and Glass is the first community you come to. It's been seen over about a 3 mile radius to my knowledge. Well, this is going to sound strange, but here it goes. I grew up in a small community where something else lived. I've talked to people from that area from 3 generations and that have all seen this thing. If you've never seen it, most of the people that have won't tell you much. They do not want anybody to think they're crazy. I even knew one man who is dead now that had a relationship, fed it, and it was not afraid of him. Um, anyway, I seen it 3 times during my childhood. Childhood. One time from about 200 yards with 2 other people. The other 2 times I was alone. One of those times I was maybe 40 yards away coming home, and it was in my backyard by a fence. But the last time was very intense. I was walking home from town about 3 miles away, and it was pretty dark, so I was looking down most of the time. I was about a quarter of a mile from home, and I turned into the street that led to my house. I walked about 30 feet, and there it was. It was about 10 feet in front of me. It was down on its hands and feet doing something. It saw me at the same time I saw it, and it stood up, and we looked at each other for a few seconds, but it seemed like forever. Then it ran away, and I ran the other way. Now, we always called the thing the white thing. It looked like what most people think a Bigfoot looks like, except it's an off white color and about 8 to 9 feet tall. My father said, my father's always said that us kids were seeing things until he found tracks while hunting. I know 30 to 40 people who've seen this thing, and that's Obion County, Tennessee.
All right. I'm trying to find something from Fort Riley, Kansas. 'Cause I think that's the
Okay. Well, somebody give me another location while you're looking up Fort Riley.
uh we've already done Minnesota. Southeast Texas is the next one after Fort Riley. And
Jennifer Lee says Southern Oregon, and so I'll prep one from Southern Oregon.
where's Fort
There are
Riley?
a bunch to choose from in Southern Oregon.
There's a bunch in Kansas too. Where's Fort Riley in?
I don't know, not off the top of my head. I know I've been through it, but it's been a long time ago.
Yes, that's probably I've been through Kansas, but that's it. I've been through it. I mean, well, I guess kind of stayed. We stayed in Paducah. No, that's Kentucky. I'm sorry. I've been through Kansas. I never stayed in Kansas.
Well, looks like we're having volume issues again. I'm going to move my mic about as close as I can to me without friggin' taking a bite out of it. Central Kansas, Geary, or Riley counties. That's what Sonia said.
I think I just saw Riley, but
Excuse me.
thought I did anyway. Maybe I didn't see it.
Thank you, Randall. Oh, by the way, the new book was this morning was still at number 1. Then it dropped to number 2, and then as of about an hour ago, it was back to number 1. So that's cool that it derailed a little bit, and now it's back.
It had to go take a pee break, and then it came back.
Apparently, give someone a shot at it for a couple minutes.
Yeah.
I think it's awesome that it stayed number 1 in Western horror for so long.
Yeah. Well, there's Fort Leavenworth. So I found one fort.
Yep, we're still number one in Western horror. Sweet. Okay, well, while you're looking, I'm going to go ahead and read one. They said
Yeah.
Southern Oregon, and there are a lot of them. They're like practically on the California Oregon border. Let me I'll just pick one at random. Okay, this is Josephine County, Oregon. Looked like it's just within spitting distance of the California line. Take Carberry Creek Road from Applegate Lake west to Sturgis Fork Road, then west, then NFD 1020 to NFD 600. I was just browsing Google Earth tonight and clicked on some place marks that turned out to be links to your Bigfoot page. The place marks were on the Big Tree Loop at the Oregon Caves, and it perked my interest because I've ridden my dirt bike through these mountains and made it to the caves from the Applegate Lakeside. After reading those reports, I think I should share with you guys something that happened to me on the Sturgis Creek Trail. Sturgis Creek Trail is at the base of Mount Elijah, which is probably 2 miles to the east of the Oregon Caves. The trail will take you from Mount Elijah all the way to the Big Tree Loop, where you can then walk down to the cave area. The first time I went to the trail was in mid-spring of 2005. I got back to my truck stuck in the snow. I tried to get it out and decided I should probably walk back down and find a phone. Unfortunately, not knowing that it was 14 miles to the nearest house with a phone. As I started walking down the road, something started screaming and howling from the trailhead area behind me. I know what mountain lions, wolves, and coyotes sound like, and this was nothing like that. The only thing I can compare the sound to was the howling I've heard in werewolf movies. It sounded like a deep, screaming howl. It echoed off the valley walls very loudly. It repeated probably 7 times, and I was getting really nervous. The most distinctive thing about the sound is it didn't die out like you hear with wolf and coyote howls. It would end abruptly and start again. Luckily, I had my 45 caliber carbine rifle with me, and I had the safety off for the last 4 miles after hearing that. I was pretty freaked out for a while. I walked backwards for at least a mile and was constantly watching my back after that. After reading the reports from 2000 in the cave area, I think there's something around there. I just hope I don't run into it, especially if it's screaming like that.
Hmm.
It's a pretty good one.
Yep.
It's not a sighting, but it's still pretty damn terrifying.
Well, I couldn't find Fort Riley, but looks like a decent one from Fort Leavenworth. So I'll keep looking for Fort Riley here in a minute. But this is a military or an MP that wrote this, so it'll be pretty good. It's Class B from 2005 in the winter, and military police find tracks at Fort Leavenworth. The tracks were found in the refuge area along the river. The sighting was along the river near the building at the CAC. I was stationed at Fort Leavenworth in 1976, and I was assigned to the 205th Military Police Unit. One of our duties was to guard the CAC building at the fort. This is the most important building on the base. It is what we call the Command Staff War School. It was guarded 24/7, and everyone had to sign in and out, no exceptions. This was a very serious detail. Personally, I hated it. I found myself on duty at the CAC with another MP we called JJ, and he told me about how an MP officer had seen some big hairy thing along the river, along the riverbanks just a few days earlier. The officer was scared spitless, according to JJ's story, and he went on to say that this thing had been seen several times over the last few years, and it's got everybody pretty spooked. The officer in question made a formal report about his experience. His career was over shortly after that. The military keeps records on everything, including this one. The river runs along the entire east side of the installation, and it's really thick and flooded timber and lowlands. You could hide a herd of elephants in there for years, and no one would ever know. I never saw this thing, but we did see footprints one evening down along the river. I was impressed with the size of these things. They were 14 to 16 inches long, but with a width that was really shocking. It was like 6 to 7 inches wide. It was it was almost like a snowshoe at the ball of the foot, and it was fresh snow in the back, and in the heavy stuff where no one would have gone to play games. We were sent there to search for a runaway dependent, some officer's daughter that had gone to Kansas City with her boyfriend, as it turned out. Like I said, these prints were big, and it was never officially reported because of the recent short-term career matter mentioned earlier. If you see one of these things and report it, your history. Period. Check it out. You will find several old by now, I'm sure, reports of strange beings around Fort Leavenworth. Good luck in finding this thing. It does exist, no doubt.
Yeah, you don't want to report that crap if you're in the military. That's very bad for your career.
Yeah,
Tony
I
says, it just
imagine.
means everything's shut down. I think we're still going.
I still see us.
Okay. Sonia said Norfolk, Virginia was requested. Well, I've got one from just outside of Norfolk near a wildlife conservation area. I know. Oh, what do you, a wildlife conservation area? How crazy. Great Dismal Swamp, wildlife conservation area. It happened in the winter of 2008. I don't care if it's posted online. I just don't want to be named or included in any of this. Location is off of Route 17 Business toward the end. The entrance to Dismal Swamp Trail is located on Route 17 Business. My wife and I were walking down the Great Dismal Trail, which is the old Route 17 before they made a 4-lane version between Chesapeake, Virginia and the North Carolina border. We had walked approximately 1 mile down the road and were sitting on one of the benches they put in along the way. It was quiet and cool, around 50 degrees. We started hearing what sounded like someone walking parallel to the canal on the other side. We heard the typical crunching sounds of leaves and twigs snapping. These sounded like the footsteps of a man, as in two-legged. They started to our right as we faced the canal, and in the span of about 5 minutes ended up being in front of us. Once they were near our center, we started hearing steps coming from the left side. We continued to listen as they seemed to be intercepting each other. A couple of minutes later, we heard what sounded like chattering or popping sounds from the center point, and then the same thing coming from our left. My wife and I were somewhat spooked at this point, as we'd never heard those sort of sounds before. I was carrying a small, thick pine branch, which I hit against a mile marker post a couple times to try to produce some sort of response. About 10 to 15 seconds later, we heard a similar sound come from the area of the footsteps, but it seemed like it was deeper in the woods. The steps continued, and it sounded like it was about to pop out on the other side of the canal. The canal is approximately 40 to 50 feet across and very deep at that point, and the brush on the other side was essentially a wall as it's so dense. We never did see anything, but I decided it was time to leave. My wife was hesitant as she wanted to see what it was. We headed back to the gate of the trail, and there was a park ranger sitting on his vehicle waiting to close the gates. The trail closes at sunset, which is at 5 p.m. at this time of year. There are frequent black bear sightings in this area, so I asked the guy how bears typically sound in the wild. I told him about the chattering and asked if they could do that, but he didn't if they could do that, but he didn't think they produced that sort of sound. We talked a bit longer and started toward the car. About 20 feet from my car, my wife and I heard a loud but short scream coming from the direction of the swamp. The best we can describe it is a cross between a whoop and a woman screaming. My wife thought it was my car's alarm sounding, but it didn't. But it did. But I said it doesn't make that sound when unlocking the door. I've absolutely no idea what we heard, but it was completely unlike anything she or I had ever heard before.
It's not a bad one.
That's a pretty good one.
Yeah. All right.
Uh, Well, while
I
you're reading
mean,
that one, I'm going to look for one near Fort Campbell, Kentucky.
that's what I'm looking for right now.
Okay,
That was the next one in line.
act in. Okay, well, uh, then while you're looking for that, got any others?
After Fort Campbell, Kentucky, I didn't see anything. Any county in Virginia within 30-mile radius of DC,
Okay, well,
says
I was
just a
already
guy who
kind of
yaps.
on Virginia. Let me get close to the DC area, and you can go ahead and read one while I'm looking for one in that area.
Alright. It's not Fort Campbell, but it's right next to Paducah, which we both
Mm-hmm.
stayed at when we were in the LBL at different times. But it's a Bigfoot sighting in the LBL, so I always think that's kind of cool.
Definitely. Okay, I got one near Washington D.C. So whenever you go ahead.
This is in 2011. It's Class B, and it was in the springtime. And it says, "Please do not post the location online." So I guess they just want the general. Wait a minute, that's Illinois. That's not the one I clicked on. It says Macon County, Illinois, but Macon County is in Kentucky. That makes no sense. So maybe they just. So we're just gonna go with it then.
No, go for it.
It says it says on here Macon County, Illinois, but I'm in Kentucky, so I don't know where that's coming from. To be honest, I'm very reluctant to submit this report, but the pictures and details are simply too compelling to ignore. 2 months ago, my wife and I purchased 5 acres of rural wooded property here in Macon County, Illinois. See, he's even saying it. I mow approximately 2 acres of this ground, with the rest of it being heavily wooded. I know nothing about botany, so I can't describe the vegetation on the property outside of an oak and or a silver maple tree. Just take my word for it. It's thick with trees and underbrush. On May 3rd at 6:15 p.m., my wife, myself, my two boys, my two boys' sons, went out on the new property to have a picnic at the cabin. I was halfway down the hill towards the cabin when my wife yelled, "Oh my gosh, look at this! Look at this!" She was up the slope close to our parked trucks, staring at the ground. I walked back up to her position, and she was staring at this print on the ground, pictures attached. I had evidently walked right over the tracks without even noticing them. I then searched the radial area around the tracks and found 2 more partial impressions. Growing more suspicious caused me to search the bottoms behind the cabin. I found a strange tree structure and photographed that as well. Listen, I've got a BS in management communications, and I'm pursuing a master's in theology. I'm also a local minister, so my credibility is at stake. I would never consider fabricating a story, much less a story like this one. Now we've got to use a little critical thinking, but this is where logic and reality seem to be at opposition or in opposition. What makes a print like the one we found on our property? There's 2 plausible possibilities. One, a very large, very heavy man or woman with a 14 plus inch foot is walking around in the cool spring air with no shoes, trespassing on private property out in the rural part of the country, risking arrest or a bullet. Or 2, question, I asked a good friend of mine and a member of the church to take photos of the print using his 10 megapixel camera. Wow, that was a long time ago. 10 megapixels. The photos are truly incredible. He took several photos, including a foot in and a foot out to show the scale of the 2, with measuring tape in one to show the depth of the photos and the area via Google Earth. That one don't really make a whole lot of sense. Which I guess is why it's classified a Class B sighting.
Sorry, I'm looking something up real quick.
Well, I'm going to pull up another one while you're looking up whatever you're looking up. I'm going to go into the Shawnee National Forest.
I've got one ready to read. I was just looking up my next one. This one is someone asked for one that was close to DC. This is the closest one I could find. Retired military policemen remember strange incidents while on guard duty at Fort Belvoir. Happened summer of '78. This is an active U.S. Army airfield with sensitive areas restricted on post. At the time I was there, the night vision labs were testing NV goggles on helicopter pilots. Davison AAF is located off Route 1, Richmond Highway. This was the Davidson U.S. Army Airfield, Fort Belvoir, Virginia. This was a while back, so please hang in there with me. From late 1977 to December 79, I was assigned to Davidson as a military policeman. The airfield's not that large, and I'm pretty sure it's still an active military installation even now. The airfield's pretty much surrounded by a wooded area, and part of the airfield is on a small swamp. When I started working there, I was chided by other MPs to be careful of the so-called DUSA swamp monster, as it was called. We had to have we had to have a walking two-man patrol a couple of times a night walk the perimeter fence inside the field area. There were countless times while on those walking patrols that I occasionally made where sounds were heard not only from the swamp area but also the wooded area along the south perimeter of the fence. By sounds, I mean you would hear branches breaking, not small branches, mind you, but I mean very loud, audible crack. You'd hear dogs barking in the distance and occasionally some kind of animal, which, after hearing recordings on the net of Sasquatch, they sound awful familiar. Randomly, I also had to pull guard at the main gate, which is right there on Route 1, the main entrance to the airfield. I've had the crap scared out of me more than I like to think about at that gate at night. You're there all by yourself in a small wooden gate shack with one street light right above you, and that's it. Anyway, to the south in the woods, I heard bangs, what you'd call knocks, and animal noises. I've seen deer running like hell and jump the fence into the airfield in the middle of the night, getting away from something. Only in the wood. Yeah, okay, sorry, got skipped there. Getting away from something, and only one time, and it was one time way too many. I saw a deer following the fence at about 2 a.m. one night. I heard something in the woods. I yelled out and saw the red reflection of two eyes staring at me back from the blackness just inside the trees, just out of the range of the street light. I still see those eyes when I think about it, and it's been, what, 34 years? One night, about 10 p.m. or thereabout, I had a civilian motorist come to the gate off Highway 1 and ask me to call the state police. I asked why, and he said this big hairy thing, and yes, he said thing, walked across the road in front of him and headed into Fort Belvoir property, and he almost hit it. He thought at first it was a man in a gorilla suit, but said it was way too tall to be a man. This guy was shaking like hell, too. I told him that it's probably gone by now, and the troopers probably would not find it. I heard of other reports by motorists and even the state police about sightings along Route 1 between Dusa and Fort Belvoir. This happened year round, almost any month of the year. That's
Interesting. Yep. Somebody asked about the Uwharrie National Forest, and there's several in there in North Carolina. So let's see. I'm just gonna pick one here. All right, Montgomery County, North Carolina. This is in the Uwharrie National Forest. From looks like June 12th of 2004 in the summer, and it's a Class A. It starts with a U sound, like, oh, they're just saying how to pronounce Uwharrie. One morning, after leaving the campground in the National Forest to get a biscuit, me and my father saw something big walking across the road. I couldn't identify it. It was walking, then stopped and looked at us real fast and stepped off the road into the woods. There was a road sign when the thing walked in front of it, and it completely blocked the sign out. I asked my dad if he had seen what I had seen, and he said yes. I said, thank God, I thought I was going crazy or something. We pulled up to where the thing stepped off the road and looked around. Nothing at all in the brush, which this thing had went through, and was not even moving. We got back in the truck and started driving, and my dad said, "What in the world was that?" We tried to rule out every other possibility, but Bigfoot, but it didn't work out too good. First, I said it could have been a bear or someone riding a horse, but my dad said if it was a bear, it wouldn't have been walking upright unless it was threatened or trying to reach for food. It wasn't. Good gracious! It wasn't present. Any suggestions on what that word is?
Your guess is as good as mine, Bubba.
I'm gonna say person because I said something earlier about somebody on a horse. So we're gonna say it wasn't a person, and bears aren't around the Stanley County area. Then my dad said maybe it was a horse because there are a horse riding trail and a horse camp in the national forest. But there's one problem: something as big as a horse or a bear should have upset the brush and shouldn't have been should have been moving, and it wasn't. Something very fast and very smart had to have had to stepped over the bush. After all this did happen in a 30-second span while we drove down the road, and I pretty much agree with my dad. Thanks for your time. P.S. I couldn't spell the name of the national forest. It's one of the Native American words. I always have trouble with those. Unfortunately, so does he with the other words in the English language. That's one of the worst ones I've ever tried to decipher.
That was pretty rough. Well,
I'm
I've
gonna,
got one
I'm
ready.
gonna copy and paste that one and send it to you just so you can laugh at it.
Roxanne asked about McDonald County, Missouri, which is right down in the very corner of Missouri where Missouri meets up with Arkansas, Oklahoma, and Kansas. So yeah, that's right down. Shoot, past Joplin, down in that area down there. This one, three fishermen returning home late at night have close contact with a Bigfoot near Southwest City, Missouri. It's a Class A encounter. It happened on the north end of Main Street, right beside Honey Creek. It was about 12:50 a.m. on Labor Day. This was back in 2010. Was on the way home from fishing with two buddies. I was taking one home when he said, "What's that big dog up ahead?" There was a trash can up ahead, and something was trying to hide behind it, but it was too big. I get about 15 feet from the trash can, and it stood up. Never in my life was prepared for what I saw. We all looked at it, and I pulled in real fast, and it took off in front of my headlights about 10 feet from us. It had long hair, about 5 or 6 inches long, and turned and looked at us twice to see if we were on his tail, I guess. This was a face to face encounter with this thing. He had his head in a trash can eating something. That's how we got so close he didn't see us coming. He left a footprint behind, and the police took a picture of it. What really sucks is no one really took us seriously on this. We all three know what we saw. We was 15 feet away at the most from it the whole time, chasing it with my truck. It ran behind a building where I couldn't drive. I went and looked in the trash can to see what he was eating. There was some trash someone threw out, and there was some McDonald's cupcakes and a chocolate milk container in it. The bank is right across the street from where we spotted the thing. I know there's a good chance they might have it on one of their cameras. There's a bunch of cameras pointed all over the bank if there's footage of some good stuff. Well, it's back in 2010. I guarantee they don't have any of that footage left, but that is pretty cool. That's a good, visual sighting confirmed by three guys.
Yeah. I'm trying to find something from Humboldt, Oregon. That I
Somebody asked
just got
about
out.
Enchanted Rock, Texas, and that's west of Austin, and I can't find any encounter stories anywhere near it. I found one dog man, but that's in looks like Johnson City, but it's not near Enchanted Rock.
I have no idea where Humboldt, Oregon is. I've heard of it, but I don't know where it's
I
at.
think it's near the California border. I think.
If it's on the coast, then there's probably a good chance that there's sighting there, but because that's where I'd say 90% of Oregon sightings come are from uh, about middle of the state towards the coast. But let's see. You think it's near?
I think. I don't
See,
know. Cat's wanting some attention.
she's needy. Let's see. Red River.
I'm not finding Humboldt. I found Klamath Falls.
I don't see it either. I mean, I'm looking all around the California border area, but
Okay. Looks like it's just outside of Portland.
Portland, Oregon.
Wrong part of the state. Other side. It's up near Washington.
I was about to say, we on the wrong end. There's Eugene.
Only thing I'm finding that's even close is outside of town to the west, straight out from Beaverton, just south of Hillsboro.
Yeah.
I'm only finding just 3 in that area, which is kind of unusual.
Well, there's a lot in the Mount St. Helens area.
Yes, there are.
There's one like almost, well, you roll it in, it's not, but it looks like when you roll it out, it looks like it's right on top of the crest of the volcano. But yeah. I mean, I could pick one from the Mount St. Helens area.
Yeah, just pick one. And just get as close as you can. I mean, we're not an exact science.
No, we're not.
It's just swag, scientific wild ass guess.
That's right. Let's see. All right, I'm gonna.
Carroll or Boone County, Arkansas. I'm gonna look those up.
Here we go. All right, you ready?
Yeah, go for it.
Don't know how close this is, but we're gonna go with it. This is Scamania from 2004, Class B, and it was in the fall. Goat Mountain Trail, number 217, 6 miles long. I don't think it was that far in though. To Dead Man's Lake, southeast end of the lake. I backpacked into Dead Man's Lake for a 1 night stay. It was during the Washington bow season for elk, and as I was heading in, I ran into 2 hunters on the trail, hunting down to their vehicle to dry out and stay in their camper. They told me that a group had been hunting in the area, but had to leave because the horses were acting up. As I got to the lake, I could tell that the horses had been kept in a small meadow near the campsite area. I pitched my tent in that area, and I was at the lake doing a little fishing before dark when I heard a howl way off in the distance. I didn't think much of it because it was miles away. There was also several bull elk bugling in the hills behind the lake, and at one point I could hear some cow elk talking. Being an elk hunter myself, I'm very familiar with the sounds elk make during this time of the year. That was one of the reasons I had gone to this area, as I was trying to call some elk in and get a picture. As night fell, I stayed up to approximately 9 p.m. listening to the sounds of the woods. I could hear a couple of owls hooting back and forth across the lake as I fell asleep. At 11:24 p.m., I was awoken to the same screaming howl I'd heard before, but it sounded like it was coming from the meadow I was camped next to, about 50 yards away. It sounded like a cross between a wolf and a very loud human. It sounded as if it was a hailing call. I opened up the front flap of my tent and grabbed my light, and the only weapon I had was my knife. I also grabbed the camera just in case I could see something. The howl was also uh, the howl also scared the 2 owls that I'd heard hooting earlier that evening. The owls continued to call back and forth to each other for the time, but after that, I never heard the owls howl, or I've never heard the howl again. I stayed awake for hours after that, and eventually was able to relax and get back to sleep. I woke up the next morning to the sound of an elk bugling when it got light enough. Or when it got light enough, I went out to look for any signs of what I'd heard the night before. I found a herd of cow elk by the lake, but nothing unusual. The weather started turning about this time, so I packed up my stuff and headed back to my car. With all of that one.
That's a pretty good one.
Yeah.
I got one from Johnson City, Texas. It's the closest one I could find um, to that area. This is a dogman sighting. Uh, says after attending a matter in Austin during the day, I decided to camp out near Pedernales Falls State Park in a private ranch that I won't name. The lady there was really nice and didn't don't wish her any bad business. It was after dark, about 6:30 p.m. last Friday. This would have been in 2016, November of 2016, when I was invited to explore and set up camp anywhere on the property. I went to the most isolated part in the back near a creek. Once in the area, I heard screams made by people, approximately two males and one or two females. At first, I thought to myself, damn, I'm going to have to hear these drunks yell all night as they blast off their primal scream therapy routine. They had set a campfire below next to the creek. I was about 150 yards away, high up near the ledge. The creek ran about 10 yards below me, and I caught a glimpse of their fire, but not of the people. Only quick shadows darted past the flames. It was odd, but I didn't think too much of it at the time. I proceeded to return to my area where I'd parked my car and gather firewood. I ignored the screams of the folks that the folks were making, yet I noticed that I never once heard talking or voices commenting in normal language, just screams that kept getting more intense and strong and long in duration. Still, I didn't think of it being too weird. I kept about my business, setting up my camp and my tent in the dark. After struggling, flashlight in my mouth and knees scraped from laying out the bedding in the tent, I walked around enjoying the open view of the sky. By now, the screams had turned into barking and howling. Earlier, during my wood gathering forage, I heard someone walking in the darkness, and I assumed it to be a female person who'd probably strayed from their perimeter and to go to the bathroom. I spoke to the person in the dark, mentioning I'd be setting up camp in the upper area away from them. The person never answered, so I felt confident I had established a respectful territorial mark where I would not go near them and they in turn would not come close to me. Nevertheless, I still didn't think anything was weird up to that point. What began to worry me was when an hour later, as I was about to begin my fire and rest in my tent, three or four howls united into a very loud crescendo. That got my attention. The barking now was more intense and deeper. At first, I thought that maybe these people were using dogs to fight each other, but it wasn't like that. In dog fights, you can listen to dogs tearing into each other and the voices of men cheering them on. Here, the barking seemed to be going in one direction, as if the dogs or coyotes were competing to outdo the other with barks, wailing, and howling. As my mind tried to comprehend what was going on, another possible scenario appeared to my reasoning capability. Maybe they had set up speakers and were playing a recording of barks and howls, but it made no sense. Once again, the barking deepened and the howling became more fierce and louder. That was when I decided I'd not be able to sleep there at all. Besides, the sounds did not appear to be human based at all. I collapsed the tent I'd struggled to set up for almost an hour. Then I left the stone ring and all the firewood of different lengths and thicknesses stacked and ready. A sense of self preservation came over me as I was alone and unarmed except for a long, heavy machete that I gripped in my right hand. Before leaving, I crept as far as I could to the ledge where earlier I'd seen the campfire, but the barking and howling was too great. I crept up quietly in a defensive combat mode only about 25 yards further, but did not reach the 50-yard mark at the ledge where I'd been 2 hours earlier. How I wished to have my tape recorder box with batteries so that my wife could hear what I was hearing. Like I said, I couldn't go any deeper or closer to them because the thing's voices out in the barking howls were not people. I never actually saw them. Wonder if that was dogmen or think maybe a group of werewolves camping out to let out the beast.
Yeah. I mean, it could be.
That's kind of freaky. Shades of the Howling.
Yeah, the colony, isn't that what it was called?
Yeah, the colony.
Old Marsha.
The Quins.
Marsha will cook it up for you.
You got one?
I was trying to find they're moving by so fast I can't.
Yeah, I hadn't been looking. Gabe Bowers says Marsha. Let me see here. Halago says, DA and Robbie, I have a story to tell y'all on Messenger. It's a possible encounter. No sighting, though. Yeah, cool. I'd love to hear about it, man. That would be awesome. Rodney says he's tapping out. Good night, man. Get some sleep. Rodney says he's
Rodney.
out.
She said Robbie said he's. I was like,
no, Rodney
I'd
said
say
he's
that.
tapping out. Kay Bowers is pretty bad when the rails run off on their own. It has been known to happen. Miss Lene says, how about Jackson, Mississippi? I will hunt up Jackson, Mississippi if you want to keep hunting for whatever it is you're looking for. And I ain't been to Jackson in a minute. It has been a long time.
Oh, there we go. I found Hickory County, Missouri. So I'll get.
Well, there you go.
So you should be able to tell me where that one's at, right?
I think so. I think I've been there. You said Hickory County?
Yeah.
Let me double check.
Hickory.
Oh yeah, that's up by Hermitage, Pomme de Terre State Park. Yeah, I've been up there. That's not far from here. That's maybe an hour and 20-minute drive.
All right, I'm over the Mark Twain. Which way do I need to go?
Go if you know where if you find Springfield, go straight north of Springfield.
Okay, yeah.
It's up past Bolivar. Look for Wheatland or Pomme de Terre State Park or Wablo or Urbana or Humansville. Wheatland's kind of smack in the middle of it.
You said Belvoir was close to it?
Yeah, it's a little north of Bolivar.
Okay. There's Pomme de Terre.
Well, if you're at Pomme de Terre, you're there.
I don't see anything around it though.
Which is weird because there's usually stuff going on up near Pomme de Terre, just maybe not on this website.
Yeah, there's literally nothing. It's just like roll it back out. The closest thing to it is, come on, refresh so I can see where it's at. But wherever that sighting is close to Humansville.
Well, that's pretty close. Humansville's just outside that county.
It's good. It's off South 50 Road.
Yeah, that's just outside that county, so you're good.
All right. In Polk County. You want me to read it now, or you got one?
Yeah, go ahead. I'm still pulling one up.
This is very small. It's like 3 sentences probably, or maybe 4. Polk County, Missouri, in 2000. in springtime, Class B sighting. The area is open field along with heavy wooded area, mostly for cattle grazing. We lived on 200-acre farm at the time. We lived on a gravel road about 3 miles outside the town. It was Road 157. I didn't actually see it, but I heard it on 2 to 3 different occasions in the middle of the night while I was in bed. It was very loud and high-pitched scream, loud enough to wake me up one time in the middle of the night. That's all there is, and that's the closest one to that area.
I might have to look and see if, some of the other sighting databases, because I know there's more out of that area.
Yeah, I'm sure there is, but that's the only one on this one that's.
Miss Lene said Jackson, Mississippi. So I've got one that's just outside of Jackson. Reports from 1979 is a Class A encounter happened in the fall. I said the area is now all developed. Lakewood Industrial Park's on the south side of the West County Line Road. So me and 3 of my friends were on County Line Road West between Watkins Drive and Hanging Moss Road in Jackson, Mississippi. We were at a small pond just off the road doing what you did back in 1979, drinking a few beers. Well, we had the radio going pretty mellow for the day when my friend Tim, whose car we were in, said, "Did you hear that?" We turned the radio down and rolled the windows down a little and listened. Then didn't hear anything. So we turned the radio back up, and in a few minutes, we did hear something. It was a pretty loud growl, not like anything I'd ever heard before. We were on the north side of the pond, and it was on the south side. There were cattails that were at least 7 foot tall on that side of the pond. Tim turned on the headlights, and across the pond was this huge hairy ape. It looked like an ape with huge green eyes, and it was turning its head slightly from side to side, blinking its eyes, which were green only because of the headlights, of course. Well, that got all of our attention real good. I remember asking everyone if they saw what I did, and we all agreed that Bigfoot was on the other side of this real small pond and had to be at least 8 feet tall and had a very cone-shaped head, just like a silverback gorilla, and it was black as far as I could tell. It was making some grunting sounds every now and then, and we cut the headlights off and cranked his car, which chose a long time to fire up. When the animal let out an almost spine-tingling roar that I've ever heard, kind of like a lion, but part grunt, but much louder and longer. The car finally started, and we got out of there. When the headlights came back on, it was still there. I have to say, it scared us so bad we didn't tell many people about it, but it has remained in my memory all these years. I can still hear that roar. It's quite distinctive. I grew up in those woods since I was 7. Always felt like something was watching me. From bicycles to dirt bikes, we would ride those trails. At the time of the sighting, the area was being developed into an industrial park, and Highway 220 bypass was in its first stages. We were really on the edge of Jackson at the time. It was good with plenty of woods and streams and ponds here. Thanks for letting me tell this, as I've never been able to forget it. I moved from Mississippi in 1996 and never saw tracks or any sign of Bigfoot, although I did know about it, and we did look for tracks pretty much whenever we were in the woods, which was often. Thank you. That's a pretty good one.
Yep. All right, I got one from Daryl Stanley. One look up Monroe, North Carolina.
There you go.
So the closest one I could find was in Stanley County, North Carolina, which doesn't appear to be too far, but that's the closest one I could find. From November 30th, 1994, in the fall. It's A classification. United States, North Carolina, and Stanley County, between the towns of Oakboro and Aquadale, on Old School Road off Highway 138. While driving down the road at about 10:30 p.m., I saw something standing on the left side of the road where the road curves to the right. I threw my headlights on bright and turned the wheel to the left and drove straight to it. I was sideways in the road. Boy, you're getting it. As I neared it, I stopped and I had a clear view of it. He done Dukes a hazard, didn't he?
No kidding. Boy, them Duke boys are sure in a pickle this time.
Wonder what they gonna tell Roscoe about this one.
Oh, they're gonna be spending the night in a drunk tank for this one.
It was so tall, I had to lean closer to the steering wheel to look up to its face. I could see him clearly, a male, from just above his knees. I didn't really have to put that in there that way, but okay. to the top of his head. I looked straight into his eyes. He seemed to be communicating with me through his eyes. He let me get a good look at him. Then he gave me a nod, and I knew I was to go. I guess he meant he was to get out of there.
Telling him, "You best kick rocks, son."
Yep, kick rocks. He was at least 7 feet tall or more, with silver and black hair, with some of it at least 4 to 5 inches long, and dark outdoors type skin. I don't really understand what that means, but that's what he says. Where it was exposed, his eyes resembled that of a dog's and were the color of an Alaskan husky, and a wide, flat nose with a wide, thin mouth like a man's. He never opened his mouth, just stood there and looked at me and blinked, some, and make gestures with his head and eyes. When he nodded at me, I knew it was time to leave, so I turned the steering wheel very slowly. I felt dazed and drove down the road. I estimated the time I sat there between 15 and 20 minutes. I went home about a quarter of a mile away down the road, and then I trembled, was so excited I could hardly walk. I was never afraid. Hey, some of these people are right. Good gracious. It's a brain exercise reading some of these things.
Hold on, I'm looking one up. Trying to find one. I've got one in Arkansas prepped, but I was looking for one in the Chippewa National Forest in Minnesota. I found it on the map, but I'm not finding it on Map Squatch. Apparently, it's up pretty dang close to.
Did Map Squatch leave it out?
They might have. Hold on, I think I might have found it. Maybe. Apparently, it is. Near Leech Lake Reservation. Oh, okay, I found it. I'm not finding one exactly in there, but here's one that's pretty close. Okay, this is a sighting from 2006, Class B. Friend of mine, husband works for the county and was grading the 6 Mile Lake Road in Binya, Minnesota, and noticed huge prints on the side of the road. The DNR has come out and made molds of the prints, and it was just out there on 6/13/06 to see for myself. The prints look exactly like the molds from the 1960s on this site. The DNR does not know what it is, but said that only something that is 800 to 1,000 pounds could make prints that deep in the dirt. They also found 30 prints back in the swamp area. The grass was laid out flat in some areas. I noticed the steps were short for someone that size. We were thinking that he was hurt, as there was only a right footprint, and every so often the grass would be laid flat like he was falling down. Oh, maybe he got hit by a car. That's kind of interesting.
Possible.
Anyway, go ahead, brother. I've got one set up for Arkansas too. Whenever you're ready.
I'm looking for Honobia, Oklahoma
Okay.
right now.
Yeah, that's down in the eastern corner, down near what's in? Oh, it's in Choctaw territory, but it's near. I can't remember the name of the town. Drawing a complete blank, but it's down in southeastern Oklahoma. This one's father and son see a Sasquatch near Holiday Island in Carroll County, Arkansas. Class A encounter. This happened in 1997. I have no doubt what we saw. It was springtime in 1997. Me, my dad, and my brother in law were fishing in a boat by Holiday Island, Arkansas, in a cove called Leatherwood Creek. We were trolling along the bank at about 9 a.m. along an area that opened up from the trees to a rocky area that was a power line clearing when we saw a Bigfoot like creature walking upright over fairly big rocks toward the power line. He was hairy, walked kind of slumped, and his arms seemed to be long. Everything you would think about Bigfoot. The only thing is, it didn't seem to me to be like 6 or 7 feet tall, more like 5, but it could have been the angle and the distance, guessing 50 yards. Don't remember the face in a descriptive way other than it struck me as kind of demonic looking. We floated by fairly quickly, but had time to witness this. When we cleared view of it, I asked my dad and brother in law if they'd seen what I did, and they said yes. We were in shock and dumbfounded. My dad died in 2005, and me and my brother in law has brought this up a couple of times since then. That's in Carroll County, Arkansas, down by Eureka Springs.
All right, I found one from Hanobia Creek Wildlife Management Area.
There you go.
It's in Pushmata County, Oklahoma. Hopefully I spelled that right. Or spelled it right, said it right. From October 30th, 2021 in fall. It's Class B. Investigator notes 3/4 of a mile east of the intersection of Highway 144 and Nokia Loop Road. And it's got the coordinates, but I'm not going to read those out. Driving down the road headed towards Hanobia, I topped a hill. I was on a long downhill, then a long uphill into a left-hand turn. As I came over the hill, in the distance at the top of the next hill, something reddish brown crossed the road. It didn't appear to go straight across, more at a diagonal from right to left, with right being the farthest point and left being the closest. When I first picked it up in my sight, because of the coloration, my brain said dog. By the time it was out of sight, I realized it was on 2 feet. It happened only in a few seconds, and it went across the highway very fast. I was late to my destination, so I just slowed down in the area to look. Once I got to where I was going, I unloaded my gear and went back and spent an hour walking up and down both sides of the highway to see if there was any tracks to indicate what I'd seen. While doing this, the person stopped to see if I was having trouble and needed assistance. When I told him what I was doing, his response was, "Yeah, you get that a lot around here." Okay.
Nice. Hey, how about we take a minute and give away a book? Who'd like to
Sounds
win a
good.
book tonight? I don't have any particular one in mind, so if your name is drawn, you can tell me which book you want, and if I have it, I'll send that to you. I don't have Demon of Paladuro. I don't have any of those on stock in stock. I don't have any of the um, um, Heart of Iron. I don't have any of those, but I think I've got most of the others. So let's everybody get a chance to comment here, and I'll get the randomizer up and running. So
I step around here right quick. While you're randomizing, I'll be right back.
okay, give me just a second. I got to get this set up. Okay. Okay. All right. Got that set up. Paul Vickroy says Chippewa National Forest in Minnesota. The Bigfoot town, they have a hold a Bigfoot convention, a big deal up there every year. That's cool. I'd like to go to that. That sounds fun. Okay. Well, we are going to run the randomizer. You guys, if you haven't commented recently, I'll give you guys a couple minutes to make sure you've got a comment, because I think it only goes back like the last 15 minutes. So if you haven't commented in the last 15 minutes, make sure you say something. I'm getting the little swirl.
It's randomizing.
It's still swirling. I don't know if it's my phone needs to be restarted or this program sucks. I may have to get another one. Come on, Jesus Christ. Okay, it picked Janine DeLauder. If I hope I pronounced that correctly. Janine DeLauder. If I pull up one of her comments, I can. Let's see. I don't know when she commented most recently, but Janine, say something. Congratulations. Key Power says Robbie randomized the rocks off the back porch. Janine, you won. So shoot me an email with your address, contact information to DARoberts at DARoberts.net and get that to me, and I will try to get that out to you in the next day or so. Oh, she said Lakeview Man. Okay, yeah, I should have plenty of Lakeview Man on hand. Last I checked, I still had several of those. All right, I will get you a copy of Lakeview Man and get that sent out. So go ahead and email me again at DARoberts at DARoberts.net and let me know. Remind me that it's Lakeview Man because I'm pretty scatterbrained. I'll put Lakeview Man, and if you'd like me to make it out in any particular way, let me know. Otherwise, I'll just probably sign something random, and we'll get that out to you, like I said, in the next day or two. Don says, DA, can you check around Cooper Lake, Texas? Well, let me see if I can find Cooper Lake. What's it? What town's it close to? Okay. Looks like the nearest big town. Well, there's Cooper, Klondike, Commerce, Texas, Sulphur Bluff. It's south of Caddo Lake. It's near Sulphur Springs. Let me see if I can find Sulphur Springs on this map.
Let's see.
Okay, now I got a start point. It's northeast of Dallas.
I'm on Dallas right now.
I got it. I got one.
Got it.
Got one. Well, there's like 4 or 5 that are pretty close. So there we go. I'm just gonna see. Let's see if I can find the most recent one. Those are from 03. There's from 2015. This is 2004. We'll go with the 2015 one. This is near kind of the western tip of the lake. Strange encounters over the years, including odd coyote kills. Okay, well, this one's like really short. So all I'm saying is the boys. We got a, like I said, here in Missouri, we call it Bodark. All I'm saying is the boys, BOISD''ARC river is real. My dad heard it. All I'm saying is the Bodark River is real. My dad heard it less than a month ago while hunting fossils near Coffee Mill Lake off of 1396. I grew up in Hunt County, Horton Bottoms. Every 10 years, it vocalizes near my mother's house, and I've had numerous run-ins with it. As of now, it's very active here. Less than a week ago, we met again. To me, it sounds like a human or a bullhorn calling cows for the night. But gosh, it's so freaking loud, it vibrates your whole body. That's really, really a short one. Let me bring up another one. I will just read another one because that one was like wicked short. Okay, this one's a bit longer. Right there, this is Delta County, which I think is just south of there. From 2003. I believe the FM number is 3310. It runs from Commerce into Delta County. The location is from Ivory Moore Park in Commerce. The park is on an unpaved county road that runs into 3310. I was with at the time I was at the sheriff's department. This road was not yet numbered. I haven't been in this area for the last 3 years. This was from '03. I live in Northeast Texas, close down to the town of Commerce. I was witness to several incidents when I lived just outside of Commerce. At the time, I was employed for the Delta County Sheriff's Department as a deputy. It was around 1990, and a friend and I were in the business of buying dairy calves to raise and resell. My friend lived in an area close to the town of Horton. The actual town is now underwater, part of Cooper Lake. This was a very remote area of dense, thick woods running all the way to Sulphur Springs. My friend began finding his calves dead at the barn. It appeared that their necks had been broken. This all came to a head on an evening as I heard his boar hog squealing loudly from the pen. The pen was located at the edge of the woods. My friend had a very mean boar hog that weighed about 400 pounds. He called me on the phone and told me to come as fast as I could. When I arrived, he was almost in shock and told me that he'd went and grabbed his rifle and went to the barn. He said he saw a very tall, hairy creature lifting the boar hog over the pallet fence. My friend fired a shot at it, and it dropped the hog and ran off. My father and I went to the pen and found a set of tracks. These resembled a very large human foot in the dirt. My father, a retired Dallas police officer, contacted my friend's neighbor. The neighbor was also a retired police officer and a professor at Northeast Texas Community College. He came and called a couple of his students, and plaster casts were made of the prints. Several pics were taken of the cast, and one was even printed in the local paper. The cast went on display at the college in the science department. I have the cast. At this time, I'm still trying to find out where it was stored to get the dimensions for you. As we're talking with my friend's neighbor, he advised that he oversaw a cabin across from him bordering on my friend's land way back in the woods. The owner had said that strange things were happening at this place. We saw that the tracks went due west towards this other piece of property. We went to the cabin and saw several more of the footprints going in a circle around the cabin. Over time, we saw and measured two other sets of tracks. The only size I remember was 12 inches. The other tracks were bigger than the set we cast. The strange happenings always started in the spring and continued until late fall. His property is about 2 miles from the Horton Bottoms, where I know several people who have seen this creature but would not go public for fear of being thought crazy. One was chased out of the bottoms while duck hunting at a slough. I have since moved to a different part of the county. About 8 years ago, a friend and I were walking along the Sulphur River and found tracks going to the water as if to get something to drink. As I said, I'm still looking for the cast as my dad put it into storage. As soon as it's found, I'll be glad to send you a picture of it. In the cast, you can clearly see the tissue ridges on the bottoms of the toes, much like ours. I'm curious if anyone has ever reported anything like this in this area. I have nothing to gain from telling this story. I've been a law enforcement officer in this area for 13 years. At first, I told a couple of people that's what I'd seen, and most thought I was crazy. Thanks to the internet, I can relay this story to you. Please feel free to contact me if you wish, and I won't read any of that information.
That's pretty
That's pretty intense.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I read that one earlier from Carroll County, Arkansas, and Wyatt, who you know Wyatt
Yeah.
is in the chat tonight. Wyatt Estes, he's in the chat, but he's gone with us a couple of times into Combs Ferry. He was telling me just not too long ago that down in Carroll County, no, not Carroll County, I think it was in Boone County, but right down there by Harrison, out where he hunts deer, he had one of them trying to doorknob on his camper one night at deer camp.
That's not what you want to see late at night you're out in the middle of the woods.
No, the last thing, because those campers are notorious for having shitty locks.
Yep.
If I looked over and saw if I'm out in the woods and I look over and I see the knob on my camper door, I'm afraid I might be putting a round or two through that door.
And somebody asked about Brady City, Texas. Don't see anything there, but Johnson City, which I don't think is too far from it. There's a Dogman sighting there, so I'm gonna read that one. Johnson City, Texas. It doesn't have a class on, which I don't think they don't classify Dogman sightings, though, do they?
I don't know if they do.
Well, all this one's got Dogman sighting, Johnson City, Texas. It don't have a time. I mean, it's in the. I think it's in the actual comment, but it's not listed out like they normally list them. After attending a matter in Austin during the day, I decided to camp out near uh, Pedernales Fall State Park. Pedernals, I don't know how to pronounce that. In a private ranch that I won't name. Like, I mean, you just read this one, didn't you? Lady
Yeah,
there, really, really nice. Don't wish her any bad business.
yeah, that was the one I read earlier.
Okay.
Well,
I thought this.
Wyatt, yeah, he said Wyatt says that was in the Ozark National Forest, which is just down there in big chunk of Arkansas. And one, I would have made sure I fixed the damn lock on my camper. So, but had that been me, there probably would have been a number of these high velocity little bastards going through that door. Nothing's coming in my camper with me in the dead of night. Ain't happening.
All right. Well, there's another one just up the road.
I don't want to shoot one, but I don't want it coming in my camper with me either.
No. Okay, this one is in Travis County, which is a ways away, but anyways, it's in that general area. Uh, it's in 2004 in the summer. It's a Class A near. It's near that Pedernales. That,
Do what?
that's the name of that river or park from the one you read. The Pedernales. Would that be how you?
Yes.
Sounds good. My friend and I were out at an old ferry road near Paleface Park, and my buddy, who is still my best friend, saw something big and hairy trotting upright on two legs, crossing the road ahead of us. We were parked on the side of the road, and he instantly locked both doors. I saw the object from behind moving through the brush. This object was about 75 yards ahead of us, and it was at dusk. This scared us so bad that we went straight home. We talked to the Travis County Sheriff several days later, and he reported seeing a bear. What we saw was not a bear trotting on two legs. It was between 6 and 7 feet tall and brownish in color. So that's one of the closest things I could find to Brady City, Texas.
I'm looking for Morgan County, Kentucky right now. Looks like Morgan County is pretty close to due east of Lexington. Just got to find Lexington on the map. Oh, okay, I got it. There we go. Uh, oh, this is a long one. It's in the Daniel Boone National Forest. It's actually in Rowan County, but it's pretty close. There's a long one, Class A. Lady gives her name. I'm not going to mention it. Says she's a BFRO investigator in West Virginia. Said earlier this summer, I got a call from another investigator about a situation in Eastern Kentucky, not too far from my location. I was the closest person, so I was asked to look into it. Ongoing activity near Cave Run Lake. After multiple phone conversations with the reporting witness, I traveled to the site to see the location and meet the people. I arrived in the afternoon and met several family members. They were a local family who frequently camped near the lake in the summer. They told me about various Class B incidents at night and at least one Class A sighting in the headlights at close range. The last incident occurred only a few days before I arrived. I arrived in the afternoon and met several family members, most of whom whom had witnessed or heard something at some point during the previous few weeks. As dusk approached, two of the three witnesses, two young men, hiked with me to a nearby hill where most of the activity seemed to emanate from. We had with us a Sony Night Shot infrared camcorder and a set of Gen 3 night vision goggles. These two witnesses, Chuck and Dusty, along with a few of their friends, probably shouldn't have read those names, had hiked up to the same hill several weeks earlier. On that occasion, one was struck in the head by a rock. He was slightly injured from it, had a minor cut in his scalp from the rock. None of the guys had returned to go back up there until this day. The three of us worked our way to the top of the ridge, stopping periodically to check multiple broken trees and branches. It wasn't long before something was thrown against a rock formation as we were passing by. We stopped and decided to split up briefly. One went with me, and the carefully flanking the side of the rocky ridge. The other flanked the other side of the ridge. We eventually met up at the top of the ridge. At the very top, we were standing on a huge rock formation with a big cavity in the middle. The cavity was a natural formation, creating a shallow fortress-like arrangement on top. The shallow fortress afforded nearly a 360-degree view while providing numerous quiet routes of escape along adjoining rock formations on the ridge. There were leaves and debris matted down inside the fortress, but there were no indications that humans had used this particular spot anytime recently. We were videotaping this rock formation in the dark with the Sony night shot and talking as it got darker. I decided to let the two young guys use my night vision goggles and camcorder to have a look around. At that point, I only had a red headlamp with me. While they were looking through the Gen 3 and continuing to record video, I stepped higher on the rock formation to look down over the other side. When I got up there and looked over the side, my red headlamp lit up a sasquatch standing 15 to 20 feet away. It was standing motionless between two trees just below the back of the rock formation. I could see it from the waist up until I turned my headlamp on briefly. Then it pulled back into the shadows and slowly walked away. For as many years as I've been reading about Bigfoots and wondering what an encounter would be like, I would not have predicted my reaction when I finally saw one for the first time that night. I was completely surprised and shocked. It was no more than 15 to 20 feet from me, looking up at me from just below the rock formation. I think no matter how well prepared you prepare yourself, you will be completely surprised and shocked when it finally happens. Just ask Doc. I was pretty addled at the moment. I started walking backwards away from the edge and nearly fell off the rock formation. I turned off my headlamp and just stood there for a few seconds. At that point, one of them said, "Eyeballs." I stepped over toward him and asked where, and he said, "Over your right shoulder." At that point, I knew there were two animals up there because the eye shine, the glowing eyes, that he was videotaping were on the opposite direction from the one I illuminated only seconds before. I said out loud that there were two up there, but I didn't tell the young men that I saw one behind us, even closer to the eyeballs in front of us. I didn't want them to panic because that particular section of the rocky ridge is treacherous. It becomes more treacherous as the fog and dew moisture settles onto the rocks and makes them slippery. One of the witnesses continued videotaping the eyes and reacting to what he was seeing through the camera. One thing I feel is particularly important to mention at this point. When I tried to see the eyes, I could not see them with my own naked eyes, but the eyes were not always visible to the guy. So I may have looked in the wrong moment. A lot of my attention was on the other direction, where I saw one at a closer range a moment before. My mind was racing because I knew one of them was behind us. When I looked in front of us, I didn't see the eyes that he was talking about, so I was trying to deny it in my mind. I could clearly hear something else walking, following us down the hill. Then I heard other footfalls paralleling us to our left. The three of us were definitely spooked and felt threatened. One had a large spotlight on his backpack and pulled it out at this point. He lit up our way down the hill. We didn't see or hear anything else as we returned to camp. When we returned to camp, we reviewed the videotape, and I was happy to see that we recorded the eye shine. The facial appearance of the one I saw with my headlight in no way resembled what I had always imagined. The eyes reflected the red headlamp. That looked eerie, but the rest of the face was surprisingly gentle looking, gentle yet intelligent. It looked surprised but unafraid. The feeling I got was that it was curious but confused as to what we were and what we were doing up there after dark. There was no pronounced point to its head. It was more of a soft dome shape like a human. The brow ridge was definitely heavier than a human. The nose was the most surprising feature of all. It just sort of hung there. No big flared nostrils or pronounced bridge, just sort of bulbous lobe. The mouth was wide. The lips were rather human-like, without the prognathism seen in other primates. That's from an BFRO investigator.
Yeah.
Hell, it's 10 o'clock.
Yeah.
I didn't realize how late that was.
That's why I didn't even go back to the map to pick up another one, because I knew this is probably the last one.
Bobby Singleton says anything around Ada, Oklahoma. I'll check Ada one more time. I'll check that one. They'll make that the last one. I can find anything around there. See if I can. I tell you, when you use the search function on MapSquatch, it is all but useless.
Yeah, I tried to use it when we first started, and it didn't do
It
anything, so I just
does
stopped.
not help in any way, shape, or
Mhm.
form.
That's why it's taking me so long, because I was just having to look because I search just doesn't do anything.
Yeah, it shouldn't even have a search function on there if it's going to be as useless as that. I found Ada on the map. I'm trying to get a feel for where it is. Seeing some stuff close. That's unless I'm in the wrong area, it looks like it's what county is Ada in? I'm not seeing here. I got to say, looking anything up when you're trying to corroborate it with the other map is kind of a pain in the ass on this website. Unless you know exactly where it's at, the search function is not going to take you to it.
That's what I was having to open up another map or another page, search, find out where something was on another map, and then go back to the map swatch and see if I could run it down.
Now, here's one that's very near Ada, uh, just north of it, Class A, from fall of 2002, Pontotoc County, Oklahoma. Half a mile east of South Canadian River, heavily wooded area, a lot of deer and other game, several creeks running from here to the river. I was 8 years old and we just moved to the country. That had lots of wood all around the house. We had a little camper I played in. I had several chihuahuas and a Rottweiler. Well, one day I was playing in the camper and the dogs were barking, running just a little ways from where I was. I decided to follow them. What came after was cute. It was a little fawn. I was going to chase it, but I saw this huge, smelly, 8 foot tall red mud clay color thing. As little as I was, I thought it was a tall man until I hollered, "Hey, who are you?" He looked at me and his face was so ugly and scary I knew he wasn't a man. He stepped right over a 5 foot fence. The little fawn ran right under it. He didn't catch the fawn. I was in shock and I couldn't speak, so my dad told me to draw what I saw. He said it looked similar to a Sasquatch. That deer season, my dad was hunting. He had a deer right next to him. He was about to shoot it and he heard something coming toward him, and the buck ran off. Dad stood up and yelled, "You scared my deer! You scared my deer off! You're on my land!" He heard a high pitched sound like a lion and a bull mixed together, and heard branches breaking over his head. He ran to the house and got both of my brothers, and they each got a gun. Mom called the sheriff, and he thought it was a prank, but they sent a deputy anyway. When he heard those sounds, he said, "Call me if you kill it," and left. Now it was dark, and the sun had set, so they gave up. The rest of the night, it paced back and forth, making a high pitched sound. That's just outside of Ada. Sounds like you pissed it off.
Sounds like.
Jonathan said something tried pulling me out of my pickup at the lake one night a couple of years ago. I've heard of that happening. Right where we were at Bennett Springs, I told you guys about the people that had pulled off there by the edge of the park, up in that clear cut area, and
Some
were
he and
getting busy
she.
in the back of their truck when something grabbed one of them.
Well, I mean, we've heard stories like that plenty
Right.
from other places too. You know, that's kind of a one of their MOs, I think.
Yeah, they're probably attracted to the hormones being released into the air by folks getting with it. That would be my guess. Well, alrighty. Congratulations again on the winner of the book, Janine. Congratulations again. And again, don't forget to email me with your contact information so I can get that sent out to you. Um, K Bauer says attracted to snoring sound. I've heard that. I think it was Jeff
Jeff said,
Yarrington heard one snore back at him. It was repeating his snoring sound. That would be a little terrifying. But folks, I'm glad you guys were here with us tonight. It was a lot of fun reading stories from areas that are near you. We'll probably be doing something like that again. Saturday, I was talking about doing a show for you could email in your encounters, but we've only gotten a few. I mean, not enough to do a whole show on. So maybe we'll hold that until we've got several of these encounters to read. So we'll be back with you on Saturday night. And as far as I know, as long as the good Lord's willing and the creeks don't rise, we should be back with you on Sunday night for the Redneck Reading Alliance. But folks, appreciate you guys being with us. Look for Robbie's book coming out soon. Look for Dark Frontiers, not Dark Frontiers. Look for Lakeview Man, Dead of Winter coming soon. Um, Robbie's book is going to be pretty awesome. You guys are going to really like that. Called Shadow Walkers Silver Star. That's book 1. So you'll be looking for it and more like it coming. He's already like several chapters into the second one.
Yeah, I'm about 7,000 words into it.
There you go, man.
First 3 chapters are done. Of
Robbie's
book
got
2.
the writing bug.
Yeah, book 2 is going to be Escape War Swamp.
Nice. Looking forward to that one. Again, folks, we're now partnered up with Sigwo Arms. Go check them out. Check out sigwoarms.com. And very soon you will start seeing Wild Hunt and other DA-verse appropriate gear available from them. And if you're into that sort of thing, you might be able to get your very own Wild Hunt AR, which I think would be pretty badass. They're going to be building one for me as well. Can't wait to get it. I'll definitely show it off. Although I don't know what the rules are about me showing a full-on pew pew on the channel, but we'll figure that out. But yeah, thank you, Miss Lene, for posting that up there. I need to get set something up in the auto too as well. But yeah, check out Sigwo. Tell them we sent you, and I think you will be very happy with the company. They're veteran owned. They're right here, a local company, and y'all know I like to support local, and that's what I'm hoping to be able to accomplish with this, is not just support a local veteran-owned business, but to give them a little more exposure, and and in exchange, we can. They're going to put stuff on the website about where to where they can find merchandise related to the books, or as far as pew pews go, and other equipment, but. Yeah, I think it's going to be mutually beneficial, but it's also really going to allow me to do what I enjoy doing, and that's showcasing real world gear that I support and really enjoy using myself. I mean, I've talked about Scallywag knives. When you ask Robbie, I really carry a Scallywag knife. So does he. So does Doc. I carry one of Doc's kits. If I talked about it in the book, I've probably got one. And I'm pretty happy about that, and that's something I want to always continue to do. And I wouldn't say I enjoyed it, and wouldn't say how good it was if I didn't believe it. I'm not going to promote something that's a piece of crap. I mean, just can't do it. Like Robbie's knives. Hell, I'll just pull that one out. I mean, this son of a gun. Not that I would, but you could stab this into a tree and use it to climb it. I mean, this thing is built solid, and that's the way I like it. I mean, I like stuff that's intended to be used. I don't want something that's going to look pretty on the shelf. Whatever I'm using, I'm going to take with me in the field, and I'm going to use it. So, be looking forward to that when they get that all built and set up for me. I will definitely be showing that off in videos on the show, and you'll be seeing it in the field when we go, and yeah, you'll see the whole 9 yards. So. And if you're wanting, knives themed from the books, talk to Robbie. Robbie's making a whole series of knives based on different characters. We're even talking about doing one that's based off a Roman style knife called the Gideon. which I sent him a picture of one I found, and it looks like a shortened version of a gladius, and it's really freaking cool looking. So I'm gonna
Well,
have to save up and get me one of them.
now that I've finished edits on book one, because I've got it split up where I'm doing mostly editing here and writing in my office at school. So now that I'm done with editing right now, and it's back on your side of the net, so to speak, I can get back in the garage this weekend because I hadn't had a chance to work on the knives since I started doing the editing because you and I talked about it. It's just I just didn't have enough time in a day to do everything that I'm doing, especially since I'm doing most everything by myself.
Okay,
So
Bowers, I'm gonna have to order more patches. I've only got a couple left. Um, I know there's a lot of folks that are wanting some of those patches, but right now I don't have the funds to shill out a $300 or $400 order of patches because I've got to order enough of them to make to make the price cut off because he won't just make 3 or 4. I mean, I've got to buy a couple hundred at a time. So yeah, I've got to save up the money and order more patches because I'm about out. Um, Folks, thank you guys for hanging out with us. And we will be back with you guys on Saturday night. Hopefully, I'll have some news on how close I am to finishing uh, Dead of Winter, uh, and we'll have some release information on both my book and Robbie's. And again, thank you guys for helping make Dark Frontiers Demon of Paladuro Canyon #1 in its category. It dropped to #2 earlier today, and now it's back at #1. So I'm pretty happy about that. And if you haven't picked up a copy, please do and leave a review. Reviews really help, and I'm astounded how fast this one has like 170 reviews already, which is really nuts. I mean, that's awesome because when I first wrote the Ragnarok books, I think it was years before they had over 100 reviews, and this one in less than 3 weeks has got 170 plus reviews, which is absolutely awesome. So, folks, thank you guys so much for hanging out with us. Don't forget we lose 22 veterans a day to suicide, and that is 22 too many. Check on your friends and family, your friends who are first responders or veterans who are still active duty. If they served in any capacity, if whatever uniform they wore, if they've helped keep us free or keep us safe, we owe them a debt of thanks that we're never going to be able to repay. So let those folks know you're thinking about them. Let them know you care because you never know when that one text or that one phone call might be what keeps them off the edge. We need to be more concerned about our fellow man's mental health status. Uh, we lose 22 veterans a day, and that is 22 too many. And folks, don't be afraid to reach out for help. We've all done it. Whether it's been sharing crying, as we used to refer to it as crying in your beer, sitting with a buddy and with a beer and getting it out, or if you have to talk to someone in a professional capacity, don't feel like you can't, as I had to. And make no mistake, I don't feel like any less of a person or any less of a man because I did it. I needed the help and I got it. And sometimes it's hard to ask for help. Sometimes it's hard to reach out. But I would much rather hear your story than read your obituary. So make that connection. Reach out to somebody. And folks, if you know somebody, especially folks you think may not need the help, check on them even, because you never know when it's the folks that look like they don't need it are the ones that need it the most. So again, reach out. Let them know you think about them. Let them know you care. And we're going to close the show out with a toast. And I know we're not going to use the same toast tonight. We're going to use another toast that I've used a number of times. But I want to take a second to say thank all of you for being not only part of the family but for being our friends. We love doing this show because these conversations are like, well, Robbie can tell you it's the same kind of conversations we have around the fire pit in my backyard. We just we enjoy talking with y'all, hanging out with y'all, and tonight we really kind of got to give back a little bit. We were reading encounters from where y'all are from, and I thought that was a lot of fun. At some point, I'm hoping I can find a campground that will let us take over for a long weekend, and we can do a big meet and greet kind of thing. Still kind of looking into that, finding a campground that won't charge me through the roof, but hopefully we can get that done so we can meet a lot of y'all in person. It'd be a lot of fun. Get to hang out and talk over campfires and have a good time. But folks, I'm just going to close her out with it with this toast, and this is for all of y'all, and just me saying thank you for being part of the family. And the toast says, "There are good ships and wood ships and ships that sail the sea, but the best ships are friendships, and may they always be." Thank you, folks. Good night, everybody. Slan Jamal, and we love you guys. See you guys on Saturday night.
Thank you for joining us. Catch us again Wednesdays and Saturdays on DAExMachiNation. A special thanks to all our channel members and Patreon supporters. Please make sure to like, share, and subscribe.